Looking back now, it seems so obvious the only move was to go out driving again that Thursday night. At the time, though, it didn't occur to Randall or me all afternoon long. If it had, things might have turned out differently. We'd have had time to plan, consider the options, prepare for some contingencies. We might have gotten away with it. As it was, I thought of it first, just as the sound of the station wagon faded away. I looked out the living room window at the Garner Chevette, thinking what miserable jobs they must have to be driving that car. And then the light went on in my head. "Did Dad take his keys?" I asked Randall. He had just flipped on the television, but my question sent him down the hall faster than I could get off the couch to follow. Dad's keys weren't on his chest of drawers where he usually left them, but the spare key to the truck, I learned, was in his sock drawer. Randall had been in the habit of periodically going through our parents' drawers for as long as I could remember. He rarely turned up anything useful or interesting, just the occasional R-rated movie we weren't allowed to see, but always after we'd seen it at a friend's house. The key, however, was pay dirt. We assumed we had at least a couple of hours before Mom and Dad would be back, so we headed for the highway. Randall wanted to see if he could get the truck up to 100 miles per hour, faster than either of us had ever been, even with an adult driver behind the wheel. He made his way carefully out to I-75, using the blinker, making complete stops, observing the speed limit. We didn't even turn on the radio. Once there, though, he wanted to open it up wide. I put on my seatbelt, fearful of a crash, but so high on adrenaline I couldn't have considered stopping or turning back. I watched the needle climb to 20, 30, 40, 50. The only sound in the truck, the changing pitch of the engine and the automatic transmission working their way through the gears. Randall was edging up to 55, the speed limit then, when we passed a state trooper in the median. This shook even Randall's confidence. He cussed under his breath, and his eyes snapped back and forth from the rear view to the side view mirrors. When the trooper was out of sight, he pushed the truck up to 65. At the first exit we came to, though, he eased up the off-ramp, turned left over the overpass, and got back on the interstate going north. He took our exit, ended the freeway portion of the journey after a mere 12-mile loop. While we made our way back into town, I couldn't help thinking about Jennifer Price and the morning's embarrassment. Here we were, out again, being 17 kinds of cool, and the next day I wouldn't be able to convince anyone it had happened at all. "I want to go by the arcade," I said. "Just pull up right in front. Walk in like we own the place." My brother smiled, winked at me, drove on. When we reached downtown, instead of taking Main Street to 2nd Avenue, Randall went out of his way to go by the police station. 3 officers stood outside the front door smoking, and Randall waved to them as though he had every right to be behind the wheel. His confidence had returned. I wanted to scream, jump from the truck and make a run for it, but I held it all in. I sat back in the seat and looked straight ahead like this was all perfectly normal. Randall made 2 more turns and parked directly in front of the arcade entrance. We jumped out and eased our way into the building slow, saying hi to all the kids hanging around outside waiting for their parents to come pick them up. I was disappointed, though, because they weren't kids from my school. Inside, I made my way around the circle of games and found my witness to the 5th grade. Billy Hackworth, who sat behind Carrie in our class, had his head wedged into a crowd of kids watching some older boy crashing his way through a round of Outrun. The game was brand new and cost a whole $1 to play, unheard of at the time. I tapped Billy on the shoulder. "You think that's cool?" I said. "Let me show you something." He was skeptical, but he followed me out to the front of the arcade where Randall was talking to Tammy Price, Jennifer's older sister. It is a testament to just how good an older brother he was and is that he reacted to my arrival the way he did. He didn't try to act like I wasn't there or run me off. He actually introduced me to her. "Do you mind if I drive it home?" I asked. "Sure," he said. Then, "I'll call you, Tammy." I walked around the front of the truck, and Randall tossed me the keys over the hood. He opened the passenger side door and waved to the gawking kids, saying, "Good night, everybody." We were off. I made the block, watching in the rearview mirror as Billy and the others stood staring and shaking their heads on the sidewalk. I made 2 rights and took 3rd Avenue back to our block, glowing with the victory, the impending avalanche of prepubescent cachet. We had been gone less than an hour and should have been home free. Then I saw the station wagon. "Oh, shit," we said, but there was nothing for it. I pulled the truck into the driveway, turned off the ignition, and stepped out. My legs wouldn't hold me. I crumbled on the grass, the driver's side door still open, the dome light, the brightest thing in my life. Randall walked right in and took the brunt of it. I could hear the shouting, but I couldn't tell what anyone actually said. My mind was a junkyard for broken thoughts, just fragments of nonsense excuses in a pile with feared punishments. No way was I going in that house. By the time they came and got me, Mom and Dad had vented the real ire, and I got up and went inside without a word between the 3 of us. Randall and I were sent to our rooms while the Garners were dismissed. Sitting in my bedroom, my mind quieted just the slightest bit, and I was able to focus on a single question. Why were they back so soon? I wouldn't get my answer for 2 or 3 more days, but it turned out Dad had forgotten his wallet. They had gotten all the way to the restaurant before he realized it, so he turned around and came home to get it. Even knowing this, I couldn't produce an image of it lying on his chest of drawers when Randall and I went back there for the key. We were both too focused on the adventure at hand. Eventually, we were called back to the living room and given a good talking to. I know both of our parents wanted this to be one of those profound moments of disciplinary action, the kind of thing that sticks with a kid and makes him behave like a rational, mature human being. But the truth is they might as well have been Charlie Brown's teacher. All I heard was, "Wah, wah, wah." The next day at school, when I was soaking in the glory of having executed the coolest caper any of my classmates had ever heard of, Carrie asked me what my parents had said when they caught us. I couldn't tell her. Had no idea. I knew all about the punishment, though. Mom had put together a chart for my bedroom wall and hung it there between breakfast and the ride to school. Randall and I had been grounded for 3 months. We would get no allowance and go nowhere but church, school, and home in all that time, all the way to summer vacation. For the first month, we would have no desserts or other sweets. For the first 2 months, we would watch no television. In addition to these deprivations, we were given additional duties around the house. We were to do all the laundry, all the cooking, and all the yard work. As far as we were concerned, we were going to be indentured servants until the end of the school year. Our parents were trying, of course, trying to get us to see the danger we were in with that stunt, the damage we could have caused. They wanted to teach us a lesson, and I, for one, learned a few things. I learned my brother was cooler than any of the older brothers in our town. Cool in the real adult sense I understand now. He took responsibility for his actions and protected those he cared about, in this case me. I also learned that being grounded doesn't give you much of an opportunity to cash in your cool points. Above all else, though, I learned that nothing in all the known world is cooler than not getting caught.